MIDDLEKAUFF! Heavy! Can you tell what I'm doing?
I think. Are you ski jumping? Or hold on.
No,
are you skipping?
I'm doing. You know, Justin Jefferson and Mac Jones.
Oh,
the gritty.
The gritty. Mac Jones.
I'm doing the gritty.
What's up, everybody on YouTube? Hello. This is a YouTube-only stream, although parts of this conversation might end up on the podcast, which is down in the description below. Your legs are looking pretty tan for mid-March, John.
I just went on a walk, got some vitamin D.
There you go. What's up, everybody on YouTube? Hello. If you are here as you are live, then that's great. If you're watching this after the fact, as many of you do, that's great too. If you enjoy what we're doing here, hit that like button. We appreciate it. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out, actually, I got to get in the, I think the podcast in the description. But if it's not, I'll get it in there. Yeah, it's in the description below. So get it in there right quick.
We're live and in charge. You know what's weird?
Huh?
Is like it is cool when 1 o'clock hits, but the ramp up, which I don't quite remember when it happened, but it feels like it's been going now pretty solidly, at least like a half a decade. We're like, don't even anything can leak or whatever. They're not really worried about it looking weird. Has ease. It's like a soft landing. You know, it's not just like holy like the NBA. It's just like remember Woj like. Now it's Schefter had already broken like 17 contracts the last 3 days.
Well, Jeff Passan's
cool.
having a busier day.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd even say this in baseball. Everyone's like, I don't feel like there's been that many baseball contracts. Like a lot of the big guys haven't signed yet, have they?
Well, but you know, I'd forgotten today until I looked because someone's like, "Oh man, Simeon and Matt Chapman together."
Oh yeah, they were signed before, huh?
I'm like, well, Simeon's in Texas, and I'd forgotten Corey Seager's 10-year, $325 million contract with the Rangers back in like November or some shit.
Yeah, because I asked someone the other day, I'm like, what? Remember that other Cubs guy? He plays like 3 positions in the infield. Oh, Javier Baez. Oh, yeah, he signed before the lockout started. Do you know what team?
Javier Baez, Mets?
Tigers.
I did not know that. Did not know that. Somebody on the stream, where did this comment go? It said, please look at... God, these comments are coming fast and furious. Keep them coming, by the way. Show us the cars. Have you seen the Carson Wentz photo? Oh, here we go. Bring up the Wentz Washington football team pick. Well, we got it right here, John. This is the first look.
Washington football team put
Wentz.
That out?
I don't know, but he did or they did or it's on the internet.
He is an ugly motherfucker. Jesus.
Shouldn't judge people by the way they look, you know?
But goddamn, he's ugly. Like we can... Yeah,
colors are not
ugly,
great.
But it's just... I would say Carson is just... Bleh. You're right. The color, it's just... God, he's...
The beard does not work for him.
I had a wise man once tell me that the symmetry of a quarterback's face can tell a lot. And
a wise man said that?
Yeah. Carson's an ugly dude.
Hey,
I'm Brad Pitt.
You're pretty good looking though. Let's tell the people about mybookie.ag, promo code Hammond, the number 1. Where, by the way, I don't know if you saw yesterday, Indiana beat Wyoming. Indiana's flight from Dayton to Portland to play St. Mary's tomorrow night was severely delayed. They didn't have a plane big enough for the traveling party. I think they left some of the tubas behind, maybe some of the tuba players. I don't know. They didn't leave Dayton until 4 a.m. Eastern time. I think they got to Portland at after 4 a.m. Pacific time. And they got to play St. Mary's in Portland. But St. Mary's is out here already. So I like Portland tomorrow, John.
You like Portland?
Sorry, St. Mary's.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what about Bryant? I threw some cash on Bryant.
Love Bryant. You know, Bryant has, you mentioned the leading scorer in the country.
Yeah. You see his picture? What he looks like?
See his picture? Sweet. I did not put 2 and 2 together. He's the guy that was going off in their conference championship game. Remember I told you the story of the team, the visiting team's family and the student section got into a fight and there was like a huge brawl?
Yeah.
This was the guy who was going off in the game. Duncan, he did push-ups on the court after he hit a shot. His coach called him over and had to calm him down. I mean, he's 6'5". He looks like the bad guy fighter from Rocky. His name's like Jada Kiss or something. But
yeah, his last name's Kiss. So I even like him.
He's from Manhattan. I think he might have transferred from Rutgers or something like that.
This game is on in a couple hours.
3:40 Pacific. Yeah. So
I mean, I can't wait to watch this guy go for about 75.
So what's our situation?
We just got money line. MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM1. Get your gamble. We got games. I mean, what time do they start tomorrow? 9 a.m. We got tip-offs usually. True TV. So we got tip-offs tomorrow, 9 a.m. Get your gamble on. MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM1. Let's get it, baby. Let's get it.
Usually go get the bracket challenge. HAM1 gets you free in the bracket challenge. Yeah,
9 o'clock is usually the time.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a
9:15.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a 9:15 Colorado State, Michigan, which I had somebody tell me Colorado State overseeded. And then as I knew Gottlieb loves Nico Medvedev, that Colorado State coach, I saw that he said that he's that they're going to win. What else did I hear today or last night? Tennessee. I got somebody telling me Tennessee's fantastic, going to be really good.
I mean, the question.
Oh, UAB, Houston's getting overrated according to sources.
You still feeling it? Friday out and about in the town, maybe let out a bat signal. People, we'll be out hanging out, watching some games.
Maybe you think like a nooner?
Yeah, I mean, right after lunch or whatever. Right, lunchtime.
Have lunch? You want to go have lunch somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, stadium pubs actually not bad food, and its setup's pretty sweet. And then right across 1515, actually pretty good food too. TVs.
Lunchtime? You want to do something Friday? Lunch?
I mean, why not?
Friday? All right. Are you saying we're going to tell people that we're out?
Well, I don't know. We can just play it. We can play it by ear. Yeah.
Not a terrible idea.
So, I mean, some people got to work, but some people don't.
Yeah. Not a terrible idea, John. God, this is...
Also Manscaped, if you guys want to get your Manscaped on, manscaped.com, promo code HAM. Nose trimmer, ball trimmer, it's got it all.
Yeah. 20% off and free shipping, and people keep DMing us their Buck Mason orders. I just made another Buck Mason order today, which I'm very excited about. They have like a workout tee type situation, so I got one of those. Check that out. Yeah, little pro tip. That one's like $45. Brad on the stream. Y'all are cute. You just made a lunch date live on YouTube while talking Manscaped. Are we invited? I mean, yeah.
So we were kind of throwing out, but we'll play it by ear tomorrow on the podcast.
You just got to show us your. You just have to pull up on your phone your Buck Mason receipt.
Yeah, if you do that, I'll buy you a beer. How about that? Beers on Ham. If you show us receipts of Buck Mason or Manscaped, but Buck Mason or Butcher Box.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Buck Mason or Butcher Box.
If you bring your sleep number bed.
That's not a bad. We'll have to talk this out tomorrow. Yeah, it's not a terrible idea. You show us your fucking receipt, I'll buy you around.
I like that idea a lot.
That's not bad at all. Indeed, too. You fucking make it higher.
Where's the place with the bar? Shout outs to Pod Review. I mean, it sounds like we're planning on something in Walnut Creek, probably.
Well, I mean, that's just unless you got somewhere else to go. Stadium Pub is a legit setup with TVs everywhere.
Cool. We'll be there, probably. Yeah. But one thing you should know about us, we don't plan very far in advance. So
that's why I can't wait till tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. Well, free agency is here. John, Happy New Year, everybody. The new league year has begun. It is the 2022 league year. You must be under the salary cap as of 50 minutes ago. And everybody is, right? I don't know what the punishment is. There a fine or something if you're not allowed to do anything?
Well, it's not even an option.
Yeah, you're just not. It's a hard cap.
Yeah, it's like you kill someone, you go to jail. It's just one of those. Like it's just not allowed.
What's the jail?
It's just not allowed.
But jail, like kill someone, you can maybe get away with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. Ask OJ. This one, whatever. This is just like, hey guys, you want that $300 million check? There's rules you got to follow, and this is one of the rules, right?
So
it's like when you go in the water and golf, you got to drop, right? It's just known, right?
Well, yeah, but you got to figure out. I don't know if you saw the video from was it Monday? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, those
Hovland.
Guys. Oh, he called Burger
Bucket hat guy Burger about where the drop should be. And the rules official's like, leave it to you guys. They're like, no, we need you.
Honestly, my Hovland Masters bet, I felt better. I'm like, Hovland's kind of an alpha. Do you hear Hovland? Like, Yeah, I'm not comfortable with this drop.
So good.
You know?
And what's his name with the bucket hat?
Joel Damon was like,
Damon
yeah, I
was
kind
like,
of agree with Haberman.
Damon could not have cared less. He was
Berger
not.
was like, yeah, he's like, I just don't agree with
I'll
you
do
guys
it, but
at
it's
all.
wrong. I'll do it, but it's wrong. All right, let's talk football, what the people are here for, John. Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the 49ers as of 1:52 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, March 16th. And it doesn't feel like, so we both we both missed on whether he'd be traded by yesterday morning. And it doesn't feel like he's getting traded in the next hour or two at this point.
I texted a buddy last night. I'm like, would you be totally shocked if he got like a 3-year extension? Kind of tongue in cheek, but kind of there's a hint of seriousness. Let's face it. Like, oh, how did they clear all the cap space? Did they trade or cut Jimmy? No, they restructured a bunch of other contracts, right? Eric Armstead, George Kittle, they moved money around to facilitate keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. They did that on purpose. Like, obviously, if you got rid of Jimmy, they wouldn't have had to kick the can down the road. So, like, listen, this could have ramifications on one of those two guys if they have a major injury. This is the NFL. I mean, both those guys play physical positions. We've seen it with a counterpart. They are still kicking the can down the road on D Ford. Now, I would say half the teams in the league would not have done this, even out of loyalty. I think they generally like the guy, right? And they would. Like, I think if you ask Kyle right now, he's like, I'd have no problem bringing him back. Like, dead serious. Like, zero hint of sarcasm or tongue-in-cheek or whatever. Like, I will start Jimmy Garoppolo next year. Serious as a fucking heart attack. Where I think, like, John Lynch, Parag, Jed, just the natural inclination of everyone else non-coach is in one to just kind of wheeling and dealing and adding assets, you know, and like increasing your value of the team. But they don't have to coach the quarterback. But this is like when you just take a step back, a little bizarre, I would say. And just most importantly, besides just bizarre, weird, a little fucking risky. You know, they haven't necessarily missed out on a guy. We'll get to Chandler Jones. Like, Chandler Jones would have immediately helped. Now, we'll see the guaranteed money, but he probably got a lot, right? I mean, he got $51 million. They say like 17 a year. I think it's fair to guess that 30 guaranteed, like amount of money that the Niners probably were not willing to pay him. So that might not have been an option, but it for 100% sure was not even a conversation as long as Jimmy's on the team. Like, you can't have conversations with, because if I told you right now the Niners also signed Stephon Gilmore, everyone would be like, fuck, multiple corners? It's not even an option. Like, you can't even have these conversations with anyone out there. And listen, I've said over and over, free agency, this is not, you're not going to land Carlos Correa or Garrett Cole in NFL free agency. But you can add pretty good starters. But when the Niners are not like $40 million of wiggle room right now. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo takes up 27 point whatever million dollars. That's a fact as of right now, right? That's a lot of money.
Yep.
That's a large amount of money. Like, the only person that takes up that much money in football are second contract quarterbacks. Like, no other position has that level of cap hit, right? It's impossible. Like, even Khalil's like, they traded for a lot. And you looked, it's like $17 million. That's $10 million less. Like, $10 million buys you a sweet safety, a sweet guard. Like, you're talking, this is a lot of money. So they are taking a calculated risk with their puzzle piece. And this is by far their biggest puzzle piece to move, because they could cut him, right?
They could.
And then they get that money back the moment he signs.
They get all of it back once he signs, the other 7.5, right?
They'd still have 20 to play with immediately.
Yeah, and so now you've pushed some of these cap hits back, right, on. Now, there's always maneuvering to be done, and they do the maneuvering, but the numbers.
And ideally, Armstead and Kittle are on your team for a couple more years. Right?
Ideally, they're healthy, like you said. Ideally, they're not hurt. I mean, but
things change fast.
But I think the other thing, I think you said it, a couple more years, right? Like Armstead, there will be a time where even if he's productive, you could get to a point where Armstead's cap hit is so big that even for a productive player, I think these numbers have been updated. His number this year, Armstead, is now $9.5 million. Does that sound right?
I mean, yeah, I think
that sounds like his new cap number, right? I'm just looking at Spot Track. I think that's been updated. His cap hit next year is $24 million.
So kick that can down the road.
Well, but the next year it's 25. So I mean, this could be his last year on the 49ers.
What's his dead cap next year?
21. So maybe not.
I would say the only way he stays is if he's good this year and they give him like a couple year extension, because he is. The one thing you'd say about Eric Armstead, it feels like he's been in the league a decade. He is 28 years old.
Right.
He's a younger. He's a
he'll
younger
be 29,
player.
I think.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, so if you extend him after this year and you play 31, 30, 31, 32, like that's not Calais Campbell. You would say his physical type, right? He could just play for a while. He's a unique body, right?
And it does seem like he's coming in the way he is performing feels like he has entered his prime and he is delivering.
He is a solid member of a really good team, right?
I'd call him solid plus. Like I think he's
above average.
He's gotten pretty good, I would say. He's pretty good.
He's been an impact player for the Niners in big boy games.
Yeah.
Which is hard to find.
This is all I think the question, here's the hard thing that we have trying to evaluate from the outside. How much of a gamble are the 49ers taking? Like, do they believe once Deshaun Watson picks a team that they're going to be able to trade Jimmy Garoppolo for something significant? And how confident are they in that? And why are they confident in that, right? Are they at all biting their fingernails right now going, we're holding. What are we ultimately going to get for this guy? And we'll talk about Cleveland in a minute. But, I think that's the one thing that's hard to know right now. From the outside, there is a lot of uneasiness about how much of a gamble they're making here.
Well, let's use the hypothetical that they have to cut him in a week, right? He's cut. They will get a lot of blowback, and I think it'll be justified of why didn't you do this immediately? You waited. You could have bought some players to help you out. What would the Rams have done? They would have utilized their space. They always do. You're not playing the same game as the team. Let's face it right now. You're competing against three teams. The Rams, who will do absolutely everything to keep winning. Tampa Bay Bucks, they are fucking spending money out of their ass. And Green Bay, somewhere in the middle, but they've kept their two most important players, right? So it's like, to me, that's who you're competing against, those three teams. What's their mindset? Green Bay's a little unique because they just got Aaron, right? But the other two teams are, I would say, operating like the Yankees, the Red Sox, or the Dodgers, wouldn't you? Just the way that they conduct business. Like, they're not like, I wonder about this and saving this. Like, they're just, pow, 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 pow. And you can be like, oh, that's not the smart way. Well, it's fucking working. Like, and that's your competition. So it's like, you can play this slow game, which historically, there's nothing wrong with it. But there's also like, you got to beat them. That's who you got to beat. Now, the Rams lost players yesterday. They lost a corner. They lost a D tackle. Von Miller, who knows if he's going to come back or not. But that's not the point. Like, they will continue to do everything humanly possible to improve. And I think sometimes I refuse to freak out. Like, I just seen a lot of people today, like, this is not the day to totally freak out. But I do understand just the mindset, because it does feel like the 49ers will always lean prudent over just gunslinger at the blackjack table like the Rams, right? And I'd say the Bucs with Tom Brady are operating like that too. The Niners just fundamentally do not work that way. Because ultimately the Trey Lance, while it's a big ballsy play, it is a big picture play, right?
It is, but it wasn't their first choice. Their first choice was ballsy, trade everything for Matthew Stafford or Deshaun Watson. Like, that was their first choice, right? Their first choice was Matthew Stafford or Deshaun Watson.
But okay, here's another pushback. Let's put the quarterback
pre
I know
accusation Deshaun.
Let's use the quarterback acquisition spending mindset in its own category. Because wouldn't you say that most teams, like, you got the non in trouble, Deshaun Watson,
right,
Russell Wilson, everyone's going to think the same. I would say every other player, that's where there's a group of, like, the haves and the have-nots of super aggressive and super not aggressive, right? Like, only so many. I bet a lot of people would have been like, yeah, that's a little too rich for Khalil Mack. But the ballsy team's like, fuck that. Like, the Rams, I think the Chargers just realized there's some desperate, like, we got to be good. We got to make the playoffs. I think Tampa would have, if money, they would have been interested in Khalil Mack, right? I'm just using these teams. I think Howie was probably sniffing around. You just know the teams that at any moment be like, let's do it. Where I would say the Niners tend to just slow and steady win the race. And I think they would come back and say, it has brought us 4 playoff victories over the last 3 years, right? So it's not like
2 conference championship games.
But that is their fundamental mindset, slow and steady, I would say.
They 19, they made a trade, right, during the year for Emmanuel Sanders. I'm not saying that's this, but, they have, what would we say, accentuated the roster. I mean, D4 did not work. But they made that deal, right? And that was...
You would say a couple of their ballsy non-quarterback moves have blown up in their face. I mean, D Ford has been a disaster. I would say their first move it's a draft move, but it was a really aggressive to get a second first-round pick, and Reuben Foster was one of the most disastrous things we've ever seen. Then they tried to get kind of cute in an aggressive way when they traded Buckner, and I think it just hasn't been ideal, even though it's had some positives, right? It's just, who knows if they had a do-over, how they'd talk about that. They'd be like, well, we probably would have moved this guy instead, and,
Yeah.
I don't know.
A part of
Maybe
it's
it's just
dependent on
simple
Kinlaw, which right now that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I think part of this is like you've always pointed this out. The Rams are
they gave McKinnon a bunch of money towards ACL twice.
Good for Andy though.
I think I just saw he signed somewhere today.
Buffalo? No, is that right?
I feel like
People thought that. But who's the guy from the Washington football team? Then went to Buffalo and then decided to stay with Washington. That happened today.
Missed that one.
Did you Google something already?
Jerick McKinnon, but nothing came up.
Usually the comments can help me here, but I always type in WFT. McKissick, thank you. JD McKissick went to Buffalo. Thanks,
gotcha.
Jamil, and thanks, Todd, and thanks, Michael, and thanks, Jamil, and thanks, Nate. Went to Buffalo and then changed his mind, went back to football team commies for the same amount, for the same deal. I guess he'd rather play with Wentz than Josh Allen. But what I was going to say is that this thing has not played itself out yet. And my read on the Niners right now, my guess, John, it's just a guess, is that they are confident that they're going to get something. And I know from the outside it looks like the Jimmy market, and this is a good comment here from Mr. Corey. Where did this go? First, it was the Rodgers situation. Then it was waiting on Russell. Now it's on Watson. Face it, Garoppolo is not that good, and are most other teams plan C. And I think the Niners' attitude is, okay, we're playing C, but they are going to get to us eventually.
Well, to take what
you're
you
right,
just said,
cutting them next week is
there is like
egg.
Getting something, like to me, getting a 5th-round pick, you get no credit next week. It's like, what would you wait this long for a 5th-round pick? When you say get something, I think you mean like a top 75 pick. Yeah. Something of some value.
Yeah, I would say at this point, even a 4th would feel like, see, we didn't cut him, and we were right.
I would say a 4th today wouldn't feel the worst. I'd say a 4th like next Thursday feels a little weird, doesn't it? It's like, wait, you just
so dependent on
you could have utilized the money.
Well, that's what it's so dependent on. Would you have utilized the money? They might be sitting there going, no, we're not. I don't see anybody. We got our corner. I don't see anybody else we want for $15 million.
We'll buy a couple $3 million players. I don't know.
Well,
they don't have any.
I know.
It doesn't feel like they're always the most aggressive.
Trent Williams trade, pretty unique, but you give him credit on that.
I mean, he said this was the only place he's going to play.
Yeah, I know, unique, but they did do it.
They gave him a 3rd for the fucking best left tackle in the league. Every team in the league would have done that.
Yes, and then paid him.
Yeah, they don't have a problem paying you once you're sweet and on the team.
Yeah,
that's not their issue. Is not money. They have an unlimited amount of money. They're the San Francisco fucking 49ers. They're like the Rams, the Glazers, the fucking Yankees. The cash is not their issue. That's part of the reason people get mad. There's no the cash. There are no cash flow issues. The only cash flow issue right now is this contract that's hindering their cap. People are going, are you using this to avoid paying some people some cash? We'll see. I mean, it's just, I think these next 48 hours are very telling. Like if we're going to the weekend, then they clearly are just like, yeah, we're not worried about it.
Well, I definitely think if Deshaun picks, at that point, I think we've run out of, to the comment earlier, at that point, if Deshaun picks a team and they're still waiting, then we've run out of things. What are we waiting on? Actually, I'll tell you exactly what we're waiting on then. Then we're waiting on Baker.
Well,
we're waiting on Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
we're waiting on whoever Deshaun displaced then.
One thing I want to see them do is to get a pick for this guy and then use like 2 threes and go land like, damn, they just landed some sweet defensive tackle, or damn, they just landed like, a Pro Bowl guard, or do something like that. Be like, okay. and the guy costs $9 million, but he's under contract for the next couple years.
Right.
I like getting cost controls assets with my draft picks.
Like what Tampa just did with the Shaq
he's
Mason
under
trade.
contract. Yeah, I'm not fuck them picks, but I am utilize those picks as resources. Right.
Yes, I know. Which is, you've always said that is more what the Rams have done than free agency spending bonanza.
And there's really only been one sweet one of those that's happened at a high level. I'd say it would be, because I think Shaq Mason went for a fifth. He didn't go for that much. Khalil to me is a high valued asset. Like any other guy that they could use that goes for a second or a third, but definitely a third. I'll be like, well, the Niners are missing out on this because they could use 2/3 to go land a guy. I mean, they got 3/3, or they got 2/3 now. They got 2/3. They got a second and 2/3. I would package both those 2/3 to get a sweet starting whatever.
John, I want you to hear what Chris Mortensen said today about Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, the Cleveland Browns, and Jimmy Garoppolo. The quote has been around the internet quite a bit, but not as many people have maybe seen or heard the full. So here we go. Let's go to Sports Center now, John. And Chris, let's welcome in Chris Mortensen here to Ham Center.
Breaking up, regardless of whether or not Deshaun Watson ends up in Cleveland. And the one thing I was told is that it's just not a match emotionally, whereas Baker Mayfield's passion and emotional leadership was embraced at Oklahoma. And even in the beginning with the Browns, things have changed. And they want what they consider an adult at that position. And that the Baker Mayfield probably is going to be moved. I think Seattle may end up being a candidate, certainly for Baker Mayfield. Other people may say the Colts. And then who's an adult? Well, listen, Jimmy Garoppolo is scheme friendly. And yes, he has a shoulder recovery. So does Baker Mayfield. But Jimmy Garoppolo is one I would not ignore for Cleveland. That's one I'm going to just put out there. But I do agree with Diana that this is a breakup about to happen. Things have changed, and they want what they consider an adult at that position. And
adult
Baker Mayfield,
adult actress, or just an adult?
Moved. I think Seattle.
Just an adult. Okay. Boy, man, I'll tell you, saying I want an adult in the room to me is one of my favorite things you could say negative about somebody.
Yeah, it's basically calling the guy a fucking loser. I mean, that's what it's calling him. Because of the level in which that position. I would say when we were younger, it's always felt like, you look historically, a lot of the guys, even before we were born, right, went on to be like Roger Staubach. Even like you just watch the way Montana carries himself, like really, really just impressive high-level guys. Steve Young, Troy Aikman, when you were kind of an outlier, like Jim McMahon, I didn't really remember watching him play, but I just remember like this crazy guy.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
But it doesn't feel like there are that. I think the problem for Baker Mayfield, when you think about the guys 30 and under in the NFL, starting with like Dak, Jimmy, Carr, and then to all the Mahomes, Herberts, Josh Allens, Lamars. I mean, and honestly, before the thing happened to Deshaun, he was viewed as like the fucking saint, right? People love the guy.
He was.
If you're a slap now, I think you look infinitely worse at quarterback. Because like every guy, it's like, yeah, we're just paying this guy like $50 million a year. He's a fucking great guy. Treats everyone awesome. He gives everyone Christmas presents. He's like, takes care of all it feels like Baker is just, to me, immature is almost a cop-out. It's like, no, you're just kind of fucking being a loser. Like, you don't have your emotional intelligence under control. That's a red flag in the NFL because all these other guys do. You're allowed to get mad and stuff, but clearly, what do the Browns have? They have 2 Ivy League guys that run their operation. So you could argue their standards might even be a little higher, right? They're just really, when I think Andrew Berry and Stefanski, you just think intelligent guys. And Baker.
At the end of the day, Baker's not good enough. From a contractual standpoint, they're also in a tough spot with him. Like, adult in the room is absolutely, they want to upgrade. But the primary issue is he's not good enough to justify what you might have to pay to keep him around, and he's not good enough to justify. You certainly don't want to play him on the franchise tag eventually. You don't want to extend him now. You don't want to lame duck him, and he's been hurt. I mean, you could argue even if he was pristine character, there are a lot of issues with the position you'd be in if Baker Mayfield was your quarterback today.
I think you would be very, very lukewarm on him. A little bit.
It just makes it easier that he's not.
Do you remember when the Minnesota Vikings pivoted off Case Keenum after he led them to the NFC Championship? And Case Keenum's like, they love him. You know, every human loves him as a guy, right? No one has any issues with the human. And, you know, he overachieved. Again, I'd say Baker's a little better. But, like, it was like, yeah, we can't maintain this. We're not going to extend him or whatever. So they just moved to Kirk Cousins. To me, there are some similarities. Like, yeah, I mean, this guy's okay and we can function with him. We do not want him and we're definitely not going to extend him. And he thinks he's way better than he actually is. The one thing I would say is, like, I just typed in NFL draft. They have the 13th pick. That's off limits. Is there any possibility out of desperation you get the 44th overall pick? That would feel like that's well worth the wait. If the Niners have to wait 2 weeks and get pick 44, it's all worth the. If they have to wait till mid-April and get pick 44, that still feels a little bit like a stretch to me. Realistically, 78 in the third round, I think the Niners would that would feel like a pretty big win.
Yeah, it would.
Because then they would have the Niners would have pick 78, pick 93. And pick 104. So they'd basically have three, relatively a mid-third rounder, a late third rounder, and a comp third rounder. And then to me, you could use a couple of those third rounders and go out and get a player and still have a second and a third rounder to just draft two players, right? Because the Niners, they don't have like unlimited roster spots. When we just start going through they have a lot of starters on the team right now, right? They need a safety. They might need an offensive lineman, but like all their skill guys, maybe need to add a running back, but they got multiple tight ends. They got a ton of defensive linemen. They're going to have to draft another or sign another defensive lineman. But they got a bunch of linebackers. They got a bunch of corners now. Like they do have a punter, a kicker, and a long. Like they have a lot of positions accounted for. Like they really don't have that many quote unquote holes. I would say
depth would be.
Well, that's probably why they're saying like, yeah, we're not overpaying for depth.
Yeah. Dan on the stream says, my bet would be that Stefanski knows what he's doing and wanted Odell and Baker both out. They're both problems. Makes it easier that this was not the administration that drafted Baker, right? Makes it a lot easier.
Odell did kind of thrive in L.A.
But he did. No, I mean, there's no question. And there's also no question it didn't go well in Cleveland. I think it, again, when you go back to Deshaun, having Deshaun not go to Indy, having Deshaun not go to Atlanta, having Deshaun not go to Cleveland, I think Carolina, for the 49ers, is the best place for Deshaun to go. You don't want Matt Ryan displaced. You don't want the Colts or the Browns to get a quarterback. The Browns, it seems like, want to move on anyway. That's what Mort just said. And the Colts, and you can, I'll let you say this, but, I think there was a report this morning that the Colts is where Baker wants to go. Well, of course Baker wants to go to the Colts. Look at the other options. Of course he wants to go to the Colts, but you said it yesterday on the show. The Colts value character a ton. They do it, they say it, and they act it too.
To me, Ballard, I can't see it. And Frank, they just dealt with Carson Wentz. If the Niners are able to get the Browns' second-round pick, they will be applauded. If they're able to get the third-round pick, I would say people will be fine, but a little indifferent. It's not like that big of a needle mover. You don't get a reach around like you.
No, but I would go, okay, all right, well played. That's what I would say.
To me, anything on the third day, I just don't think anyone cares.
Yeah.
So third round, you get well played. Second round, you guys are geniuses. That's kind of where we're at. So you get a well played third round. Second round, if you get
first
the second
round reach
pick,
around.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first round, you get a fucking parade. They get the 13th overall pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. It'd be the greatest trade in the history. Second round pick, I think they would be universally applauded. Third round, you're right. It's like, that's good business. It was worth it as long as you didn't miss out on anyone. I'd say anything on the third day, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. So it's like, if you're waiting for third day picks, like I just think a lot of people are going to be like, what the fuck were you? You could have cut him for a fifth round pick?
Well,
like,
no, I know.
Break.
But I will say, as it relates to this specifically, I think Cleveland's a good fit for him. I think Indy's a good fit for him. I think Cleveland's actually a really good fit for him. I don't know what you think about that. The problem...
It's easier to get a pick to me from the Browns, a better pick, because, like, let's say that third-round pick in the 70s, because they have the 13th overall pick and they have the 44th overall pick. That means they could turn 13 into 18, probably get, like, another third. They could have a bunch of picks. To me, Indy is a little more pick-dependent because they're missing a 1. So if I give you my third, I basically just have one pick in the first 150 picks of the draft. Like that's, it's hard for GMs to think like that. Now, obviously, quarterback, I have to fill the hole, but I could see Indy trying to get him for way cheaper, right?
Sure. My ultimate point, though, is Cleveland makes sense, and I think you do have the real possibility, depending on where Deshaun goes, of two teams that both want Jimmy Garoppolo.
Do you really like Jimmy in that weather in November, December?
I don't think weather is a big issue for Jimmy. I think the fact that Baker got beat up there, I don't love that physically, because Jimmy obviously has had some of the same issues. But I think the offense makes sense. I mean, Amari there, I think it's a solid team, good run game, good coach. I really don't hate it for him. The weather concerns you with him? I mean, do you feel like he's played poorly in the cold?
No. Yeah, he does have a great arm. He's not afraid of the weather or whatever.
Better arm, Baker or Jimmy?
Baker. But Jimmy gets rid of the ball faster. Jimmy has a better understanding of his athleticism. Like that's I'd say one Baker issue why he kept getting hurt. Like Baker kind of runs around. Like, bro, you ain't Joe Burrow, my man. Jimmy, gets sacked every once in a while, but it's not because he's trying to like do crazy shit. Like sometimes he maybe freaks, doesn't see something, but for the most part, you would say Jimmy wants to get rid of the football, right?
Yeah.
It's like his defining attribute is getting rid of the ball fast.
Yep. And wanting to make plays, John.
I know.
So how about he mentioned the end of that clip, he said Seattle as a possibility for
Which
Baker.
Makes sense, right? Because I would say that they would overlook in desperation some character might be strong, but they kind of like, one thing Morton mentioned there is like the ego and the cockiness from Oklahoma. It didn't quite translate. Mm-hmm. I do think different coaches value different things. And I would imagine that John and Pete really liked Baker coming out, like kind of that bravado bullshit. Now, once you're not as good of a player, it's like that gets diminished, right? Like Joe Burrow, it carries with Joe Burrow his bravado and it's weird because he has a lot of humility, but like the ego in which he plays with because of how good he is, like it feels like Baker has a false sense of like his physical skills sometimes.
It has to work.
But Baker did have success 2 years ago when they had a
Baker
run game.
doesn't. I don't think Baker sucks. We've always just said we think he's not the future. The guy who we had like one Browns guy who would tweet at us like 3 times a week. I haven't seen him in a while, but Baker put out a statement yesterday, which included this line here. I have no clue what happens next. By the way, statement like Apple Notes or whatever. I have no clue what happens next, which is the meaning behind the silence I've had during the duration of this process. You just put out like a 3-note page statement. So the silence it just sucks. This is part of the deal as a player. You just got to sit back and take it. You might wake up and get traded to the Blue Jays. You might wake up and get traded to the A's. That's part of the deal. And yeah, I mean, this has happened pretty quickly with them in Cleveland. And again, if they thought he was a stone cold leader, locker room rock, I don't think we'd be here. But
probably
because they need a quarterback.
Well, if they thought he was like a top 12 quarterback, great guy at $18 million, isn't he a huge asset to them?
You wouldn't go. You know what we really need? To pay Jimmy Garoppolo more money and trade for him.
Yeah, I wonder if they just think he's just a lower level guy.
Yeah.
It might just be as that simple. Like, you just don't get it. And listen, in fairness to Baker, being a quarterback is really hard. It's a lot of pressure. It's really intense. There's a small percentage of people who can physically handle the requirements, right, that are really, really good. There are like 10 really good quarterbacks in the NFL, and really like 5 are way better than the other 5. But then the amount of guys that just like, oh, this guy can mentally handle everything. Honestly, a lot of backups can, but they don't actually have to play, so they don't ever get criticized, right? It's very difficult. It weeds and exposes people fast, either physically or mentally, and a lot of people gets combined, right? And I'd say Baker's a good example of like, I think his mental started to go when he physically realized like, God, this is fucking hard. You know?
But that's a whole that is a separate conversation from even just leadership.
Yeah, that's where I give Jimmy. Jimmy can handle adversity much better than Baker can, right? And I think that speaks to his character of like, Baker, why are you always fighting with the media members? Like, what's the point of this? What is the outcome of this? Why? And it's because you have what I think the team thinks, you have a lower EQ. Like, Baker's smart. Like, he was a good student at Oklahoma. Like, people that have been around him, he scored high in the Wonder. Like, it's not because he lacks intelligence, right? Jameis is, like, really academically smart. Like, could have got or had a chance to get into Stanford. But his EQ and decision-making historically has been very questionable, right? And actually, he's a good example where doesn't it feel like Jameis kind of took steps? Like, you know what? The last couple of years, people just think a little more highly of him.
Yeah.
Got around Drew. Sean liked him. Kind of was like, okay. But his play is still like, watch him. Is he that good? Even though he's more
I think
likable.
one thing, like one difference, right, is Jameis puts out his workout videos. Everyone makes fun of him. He's in on the joke. Like, he thinks it's funny, too. Jameis doesn't operate with a big chip on his shoulder. Whereas Baker, what's funny,
Jameis takes himself less serious for sure.
Baker's really good at commercials. I will say that.
Yeah,
I'm not trying
actor.
to be, just an aside.
I could see him going Hollywood, when he's forced out of the league by 30 years old.
He's not bad.
Because here's the thing, guy. When you transition to a backup quarterback, which you would say that's where his arrow's pointing, no one has a slapdick backup quarterback.
Yeah, it's not pointing that way if he doesn't become a locker room leader.
Look at the backup quarterback. Like, everyone keep making fun of Chase Daniel all they want. If he never throws another pass, I saw this stat, $177,000 for every pass he's ever thrown. That's what he was paid for
Chase Daniel.
Chase Daniel. But
so
one
how much
thing
for completion?
I made probably 500. The point is, like, people like this guy. Look around these backup quarterbacks that make that extra five. Like, isn't Matt Schaub a good example? Like, what did Matt end up banking those last 4 or 5 years? Why? People just liked it every day when he walked into the office at 6:45. Dude, sometimes you're like, oh, here comes fucking Shirley Baker again.
Well, there's so much money to be made. Like, backup quarterback 5 years from now, right? Versus backup quarterback now. The cap's only going
like 7.5 a year for the below average guy.
There's so much money to be made, man. Check. Actually, before we jump any further ahead, hold on. Let's tell the people about our friends at buckmason.com/hammer. Right now, you get a free tee with any order. You can order a t-shirt and get a second t-shirt for free. You can also get the hoodie that John is wearing. John, do you know I'm wearing Buck Mason right now? This is Buck Mason. This is Buck Mason.
That's a good looking shirt.
Right? I love the t-shirt. Big fan of the Pima. Big fan of the
guy Johnny
scrub.
Cash Haberman.
Should I go? I gotta go up top. What do you think? Do you think this is my look or no?
I mean, sometimes it's not bad to mix it up. You should get a bolo tie like Philip.
That would work with some of the Buck Mason stuff. But I love the Pima. I think the beautiful thing about the Pima is it's super clean, super comfortable, but can also be like worn out on a Friday night. The slub is also very comfortable. They got the V-necks, they got the crew necks, they got the curved hems at the bottom, they got the straight hems, they got the tall sizes, they got the short sizes, they got the trail runner t-shirt.
Oh,
they got the heavy tee, they got the pocket tee. I mean, it's all really good quality. I can say this. You can check the tapes, go watch the old videos. I have been wearing Buck Mason pre-sponsorship. John is in on it now, loves it. I love their hoodie. I really do love their hoodie. Buckmason.com/ham. Free t-shirt with any order. I haven't tried. I mean, you can get some socks and get the free tee. I don't know. They got women's stuff. I don't think you get a free women's tee, but you can get a woman's hoodie if you want, and a tee for yourself, and a gift, and a free tee, and bang, bing, bang, boom. So check it out. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Big fan.
Buckmason.com/ham. Go get it. Go check it out right now.
Check out these hoodies. Where'd the hoodies go? Sweats. I got the navy hoodie. I love the navy hoodie. I got the cream. I think the cream hoodie's good. John's got the black. It's a good color. Strong tassels there. Whatever you call them.
I love a good strong tassel. Are these in now, guy? The strong tassels?
I don't know, but they feel good. High quality product, John.
Do you ever have like a pair of basketball shorts or whatever, and somehow the string gets caught in the washer and dryer and just ruins it? That's happened to me a couple times.
I know. Mr. Corey says, y'all ain't wearing none of this shit when they stop paying y'all. I was wearing it before they started paying me, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear this sweatshirt.
It's a good-looking sweatshirt. And if you don't like the hoodie string, you just pull it out.
You ever do that?
No.
And again, that sometimes happens
But
in
you
the
could.
washer and dryer where it just disappears. You're like, where's the string?
You could if
How
you
does
wanted
this
to.
get out in all the water and the heat? But it does. It's like a
I
snake.
don't know. By the way, did you see this Ben Albright tweet from earlier? Could a mystery team be lurking to swoop in with a huge offer on Deshaun Watson? Not SF. Wrong coast.
Jags, no.
Dolphins? No. Panthers already in.
Dolphins, you'd say no, but you never know. Patriots? Would Bill just fucking kick Mac to the curb?
Yeah, I think he would.
And then just like trade him to like the Browns for a second round pick or whatever?
Send him to the Raiders. The Raiders send Derek to the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, now the one thing is,
Eagles.
One craft philosophy. Now again, I mean, his wife's been passed away for a while. Like she was really big on, like anti anyone who had any issue with women's stuff. And remember,
she wanted Antonio Brown off the team, right?
She
had passed away by then.
Yeah, she wanted that the pass rusher Peters, or they drafted a guy. Remember in the second round
from Nebraska.
Yeah, and she wanted him cut. But part of the reason they cut Antonio Brown was like, I don't know if the last name's Peters, but it's something like that.
No. God, that sounds right.
I think Antonio Brown was just like, Kraft was like, we don't allow this. And Belichick's like, I don't care. And
Christian
like,
Peter, right?
Christian Peter, yeah.
That's right. That's a good call. Philly, right? You'd have to think Philly is part of that conversation.
Well, one thing is people act like Deshaun's not in full control, because I saw someone tweet like the Texans have approved these 3 offers. Like they don't have to say yes. Like you have to have. That's why if Indy had 3 first-round picks, you might just be like you said, well, I just get 3 first. But they don't. It's like I'm not even talking to you. 1, you're in my division, but 2, you have nothing to offer me, right? My house costs $1 million, and you're coming to my front door with 400. Like that's not enough, right? At least. I would say if you're
like, but I see the moving truck. You're like, I don't care. I'll let it sit here.
Well, if you're like Caserio, it's like, yeah, I kind of like the Browns offer because they got pick 13, but I really like the Falcons and the Panthers because they're in the top 10, right? So I think if you're them, ideally you want the highest pick this year because I think you have to assume like that team. If I was in a meeting and Caserio's like, I would say I think we have to assume next year we give them Watson that team is 20 or better next year, right, in the draft. So right now we want to get as high as physically possible and then just assume, because you would say historically for quarterbacks, like Seattle, I give Seattle a lot of credit. They got the 9th pick from Denver. Like that pick is very, very valuable. And I think they would have to, in their room, be like, well, next year that pick is probably going to be starting at 23 and up, right?
Right.
But we got 9 this year. So can we turn 9 into pick 14 and add another second, and we also have their second? Now we got a a solid first and multiple seconds. We got wiggle room. I didn't realize the Browns, because when I saw they had approved the Browns offer too, but pick 13, I understand if you're the Texans, you're like, we got pick 3, we add pick 13, maybe we get an extra first out of them as well, right? So we get 3 firsts. So we have multiple first-round picks for several years coming up. That gives us just, ability to operate, because maybe in 2 years we're solid and I can use one of those first to go get a Devontae Adams. I'm just, you pick the player, right?
Right.
Khalil Mack, I think ideally with that, one thing I will say about my philosophy on trading the picks for players, ideally it's younger guys who ultimately you want to extend.
Younger guys with 2 years, with a year and another year on their contract who need to get paid, and you like them, but you're going to have them so they're not true free agents.
Or even just like Bears when they got Khalil. Like I want to get them in their prime. If I'm not getting a prime guy, we immediately start talking like after pick 50, right? Okay, I'll give you pick 75 for a 30-year-old guy that might only give me a couple years, but if he's still elite, like if Chandler Jones was on the trading market right now and he was under contract for the next 2 years at $15 million, if you told me the Niners traded a second-round pick to get him, I'd be like, I get it. Older player, but like cost-controlled. I have a hard time trading a pick for an older guy that's not necessarily cost-controlled, like going to be a free agent in a year, unless you're not like the Rams were in the season, so you knew where your like lot and land was, right? You just kind of you knew
we're going for it.
Yeah, like all of a sudden you do a move like that and you're like 1-5. You're like, fuck, I regret that one.
It costs more in the season, right?
Costs more in the season, yeah.
Okay.
And that one, remember, they basically the Broncos bought picks because the Rams, remember, only took on like $500,000. They covered the 8. It was like he's owed $8.5 million, and the Broncos are going to pay 8 of it, which was smart because now they have more picks for this draft. Actually, it probably made the Russell Wilson trade a little bit easier. It's like, well, we got 2 2s and 2 3s, so yeah, we'll give you our second. We got another second.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Rams were like, well, we won the Super Bowl, so your second sucks. It's better than nothing.
Tennessee Titans are planning to release wide receiver Julio Jones. Sources tell Schefter and Diana Rossini. Jones was signed through the 2024 season, likely be released with a post-June 1 designation, given the Titans $9.5 million in salary cap savings. As you would imagine, a lot of people want Julio Jones on the team. He gets connected to Kyle Shanahan all the time. And it's not hard to find things that Kyle said about Julio. Kyle has as many quotes about Julio like Julio is on his team since he no longer coached Julio. It's one thing if you coach a guy, you can find 2 pages of Google results of Kyle Shanahan quotes about Julio Jones since Kyle Shanahan left the Falcons. And that includes last year on the Flying Coach podcast with our guy Peter Schrager and Sean McVay, as transcribed here last year from 49ers Web Zone. Our biggest fear in Julio is that Sean's going to go for him, Kyle Shanahan said. Like, my first choice is, man, I just wish Julio would go to the AFC. But if he's going to go to the NFC West, we've got to make sure we get him because it almost ends up being an arms race. I know how good a job Pete does. I know how good a job Cliff does. Everyone's got quarterbacks. That's the frustrating thing for me. I always say, let's do it the right way. And there's no right way or wrong way, but you don't want to have to risk your future to compete in 1 year. And that's the hardest thing about being in our division because I know how Sean rolls. And it's very similar to me. And I can see the other 2 guys in our division. Julio would have helped everybody, but you know what it's doing to your organization for that year and years to come. It's a really risky thing. But, man, if Sean's getting them, I'm going to risk that. I know how he thinks, too. That's how we all think because you got to compete in your division first.
Well, we talked a lot about this last year, right? Should they be in the mix? It worked out that they weren't, right? Because ultimately, Juwan Jennings emerged, and they worked through the Brandon Aiyuk, and Debo became a star. But sometimes when you're patient, a year later, like he's clearly damaged goods, and he's not worth any money. Can you get him on a veteran minimum contract? Right? The equivalent of what the NBA does with like what they're doing, what the Warriors are doing with Andre Iguodala. And you know the best part about getting a guy on a nothing contract, and if you're Julio, like maybe you could just sign a 1-year contract, then maybe you can get one more like 1-year $8 million deal.
Right.
Because right now you're trending the wrong way. So you want to go to a place that's going to utilize you and have a guy that loves you. And I would say that Julio makes a shitload of sense. Now you would also say that like LaFleur's been around Julio, right, in Green Bay. Why wouldn't they be interested just for $1 million, just to be like, hey, Aaron, we'll just
make Aaron very happy.
Yeah, I would say the Cowboys are always, like, to me, guys like that. You know, again, he's got to be cheap. I would be all for getting him for, $1 million. But, or even if it's like 1.2 and then incentivize it up to like 6 or 7, that if you catch 5-6 touchdowns, you get 60 plus catches. The problem with Julio, you would say now that you have 2 established wide receivers, even if you pay no money, he doesn't play special teams. So when you have 5 wide receivers dress, Debo does not play special teams unless it's like you're desperate and you put him back there. Aiyuk ideally doesn't punt return or whatever, doesn't play special teams. Juwan Jennings will have to a little bit. That's just the nature of being a third wide receiver. And then if Julio is on your team, he's dressing too. Like, he's not playing special teams. So now it's like when we argue, like, part of it is Hightower was pretty terrible and clearly it felt like no one knew what was going on. But you could also say it's like, Kyle wasn't really into playing as good players on special teams. So then you get there's a huge drop off.
Remember, we talked to Dante Whitner about it. Said, Dante, why do you think their special team sucks? And he said, one thing is they don't put their best players on special teams like we used to do. The Harbaugh era. And he's right.
Which is a balance. Like, do you want
it is.
Use check on every unit? Do you want Brandon
Your linebackers are dropping like flies. Do you want them covering all the time?
No. And it's like, well, the Ambry Thomas is your third corner, but you're like, we got to utilize him on all the teams. It's easy for Belichick to say it when he's like, yeah, even if a guy goes down, I still got 6 rings.
Yeah, right. It's weird. I mean, they just re-signed Matthew Slater again. I don't know if you caught that signing the other day.
Well, he's gonna sign 1-year deals with the Patriots till he's the coach. Would it totally shock you if anyone just transitioned? Like, the Patriots have announced Matthew Slater's retired, and we have named him the head coach of the Patriots. In waiting, he will coach 1 year under Belichick, and then he'll transition.
Are they going to get around the cap somehow by making him the special teams coach, but also keeping him as an active player?
I saw that Cannon, the kick returner, he's gone.
Wait, Trent. Yeah, Trent.
But again, like to me, that is like you find that guy in a practice squad. Like that's easy to find.
I think now Julio's made somewhere in the neighborhood of $95 million in his NFL career.
He's made. I was gonna guess more than that, but maybe.
Well, his rookie deal was $16 million, and then his contract that he signed in 2015 with Atlanta was $71 million.
Gotcha.
So that's
he was that transition when they capped the rookie deals because he was like the 6th pick. So a couple years before that would have been $40 million.
And it feels like that he was in. It feels like he's been around since those early deals. I mean, 2011. When did they cap the rookie deals?
Yeah, I got career earnings 140 because where he's really cashed in, guy. The last.
From you know what? I might not have his rookie deal. What was his rookie year?
11. But do you know where he's separated? 19, 26 million, 20, 22 million. Last year, 15
did he
million.
sign a new contract in 19?
Yeah, he signed a 3rd contract. So he in
back to
his
back
first
years,
contract
he made
went
50
through.
Million. Gotcha. Okay. So his first contract went through 20, but they wiped that thing out and gave him a new contract. Got it.
Because remember, he was threatening to quit or hold out.
That's right. Yep. Glad you checked. So
he had life change. I mean, he was already obviously super rich. He went from fucking super wealthy in 19.
So the point is, like, this is the time in his career. Now, he could go try and find the most money, but it's not like someone's offering him $8 million anywhere.
He made $140 million playing receivers, a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a shit ton of money. So, he played 9 games 2 years ago. He played 10 games last year. Not very good.
Right. 2011 is when the lockout, I was there. That sucks for him. I went to his draft.
Wow.
Julio,
you were on the phone? You still had hair then. That was a save it year for MIDDLEKAUFF.
Roger, Danny Watkins. We'll take Danny Watkins.
Put in the card. A Hall of Famer. We were all here when Danny Watkins went in the first round. 26.
Raj, he's a former fireman. Say
out of the Philadelphia Fire Department. He's 27 years old. He's in an athletic prime. Hasn't played offensive line in 12 years. We got him.
Yeah, Julio, J.J. Alden, A.J. Green, Von Miller, all these fucking – I mean, it was a historic draft. Eagles might have the worst pick.
Well, you did some good for a local community, though, by drafting a fireman. So I think the question is you said it, but Julio and Kyle Shanahan is a fit. How does he fit in on this team? And that's the harder thing. Do they have a number one? Do the Niners have a number 1 receiver? Yes. Do they have a number 2 receiver? Yes. Do they have a young player they drafted that, I mean, you would say at worst is a number 4. I mean, do you want Juwan Jennings to be your number 3 or like your 4? We could debate that, but he clearly is a very good player, right?
Who, Juwan Jennings?
Julio's not better than him right now. Put it that way.
No. I mean, what I saw Juwan Jennings do live standing there against the Rams in that game, and obviously he went on to still make more plays, was really impressive. Just the way he moved, his physicality, like he could break tackles.
And it'd be like on 3rd and 7 that he'd make plays too, right?
And what's his
first down machine?
What do you think Juwan Jennings' greatest attribute is?
You mean he's cheap?
His salary.
Yeah.
Right?
So I just don't know if you're Julio, if the Niners actually, they make a ton of sense in the sense that it's Kyle, but do they really make that much sense? Now you could say injuries happen. There's always a place for another receiver.
I think vet minimum, you take him in a heartbeat.
Put him around. The other value, you remember last year when Juszczyk was on the show. He said,
Juwan Jennings career earnings,
yeah,
$900,000.
He's gonna get a little bump though this year, right? Because he's
been in the league for 3 years. $825 is what I got.
Wait, 3 years? He was drafted in the Ham YouTube era.
Yeah, he was a practice squad guy.
He was in the 20 draft.
He was in the 20 draft.
So he's coming into his third year.
Practice squad all that year.
Yeah.
And then last year was the first year.
He's coming into his third year.
Yeah, so he's got 2 more years on his contract.
The league year begins today.
I guess what I'm saying is they'll have to tender him after this season.
I just think that
does he have second round tender written all over him? You give him $3 million next year, or is that probably bold?
$3 million, absolutely. You give him 3. I mean, if he plays this year, like he played last year,
like the 49ers second round tendered Al-Shaair, and that was $4 million. So that's which
is fine to me.
Well, it's me too, but it's a double whammy, right? You're like putting a pretty impressive tender on. No one's going to trade a second round pick for him, but $4 million isn't nothing. But you value that. Like he's a $4 million player. Is Juwan Jennings that in 2 years? I think in a year. It's going to be fascinating to watch because I don't think it's inconceivable that Juwan Jennings could have a season of like 54 catches and 6 touchdowns.
Oh, right. No, yes.
And like to me, he's on a trajectory. Different player, but just in terms of trajectory, Kendrick Bourne style, where it's like you were lucky to have him for your third receiver for 3 years.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And then in 2 years, Balky gives him $60 million.
I just think back to what Juszczyk said last year, which is like, man, I think all Aiyuk needs is a veteran around him. He would love that. He needs that. And obviously, as the year played out, they got the most out of Aiyuk by the end, and Debo. But maybe there is a value in that as well if you get Julio around.
To me,
for the league minimum.
Yeah, price.
That'd be one of those that everyone would treat like a big splash.
Well, I'll tell you one guy that if you had the money that I'd be all over to sign at just like 1 year, $8 million would be like Von Miller. All Von would have to do is pass rush. I mean, he plays like 20 snaps a game and just can you give me 10 sacks on the season? Because again, the money, like you're going to have to use it. Like where else are you going to use it? You know, but you don't, that's the problem with Jimmy, right? Like you can't even talk to Von Miller right now. He's like, well, you don't have any cap space.
But he's still available. I mean, that's the crazy part, right?
I know, but you could be aggressive with a guy like that. And it's a double whammy. You don't allow him to go back to the Rams. Like he did play a pretty big role for the Rams, right? He sacked Jimmy in the playoff game. He obviously sacked him in the final week 18, which almost cost them the game because they had to punt. But you just can't even do that. Clearly, Gilmore, maybe his market isn't quite as bold as people thought.
Have we seen the Chandler Jones money yet?
No, I just saw 51, but it could be a $10 million bonus, right? It could be like a true one year $10 million.
If that was what it was, wouldn't that surprise you a little bit?
My guess is over 20 guaranteed dollars, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would guess it's.
I could see 351 guarantee about 25, 30. So basically a 2-year deal.
Sam says 351. That was the initial report, right? 351 is what we know. We just don't know what the guarantee is.
Yeah. So 351, 17 a year. Everyone's, highest 17 a year, one of the highest paid pass rushers. Like, what's the real money? Because could they have given him more accomplished player because he's been in it longer? But Max has been in your trenches in your locker room helping your team through some shit. Like, can you give
new GM, new coach,
more GM?
Yeah, 26. So give him 25.
They got rid of Yannick Ngakoue with a quickness.
It was a pretty impressive tic-tac-toe by the Raiders. Chandler Jones, Yannick for a corner, Rock Ya-Sin, centering the Colts. Yannick was kind of one of the big swings of last year's Raiders free agency, right? And now you got Chandler Jones and Max Crosby in a division with Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert that you're playing, and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good.
I'm pretty sure that Yannick or what's his name, the guy they traded, the corner. How do you say
Rock
his name?
Ya-Sin.
How do you spell that?
Rock
Oh, Rock Yassin. Was he a first-round pick?
I think he was, yes. If not a first, he was a second. He was a very high pick.
Yeah, he was a 34th pick in the draft, so he was right at the top of the second round. Yannick Ngakoue, I saw Michael Lombardi tweet this out, and obviously his son now is Josh's offensive coordinator, and he's a Patriot guy, and Patrick Graham, their new defensive coordinator, Patriot guy. Yannick Ngakoue does not play the run. He is a pass rusher only. He's D Ford. You know who doesn't fuck with those type players? Patriots. If you don't play the run, you cannot play in that defense. It is a gap defense. There's not just running around and making plays like kind of Yannick does. And listen, I'm not some anti-Yannick guy, but he was dead on arrival the moment those Patriot guys. Like, that's not their style player. And then I started thinking, Ziegler and Josh were around Chandler Jones.
Right?
Right? Who's to say that they were like, hey, Bill, like, put some clothes on him. He'll be fine. We'll take the pipe away. I bet not everyone in that building.
He is back in Vegas.
And to get a corner who, the guy's played a lot of football. It's just, you're right. It was just an impressive chess. It doesn't feel like
they had one player. They now have two
like that.
And they have one player. They got a better player than him, and they added another player. Yeah, I thought today was a pretty professional day for the Raiders.
I agree.
And they got a really good play. Like, their division requires you to get to the quarterback.
And now their defensive ends are Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. That's pretty good.
It's really good. There's going to be, I know that AFC West is obviously, it's incredibly difficult. You said the other day, maybe could all four teams make it. But I do think that there's going to be expectations on the Raiders. There's going to be expectations on Josh and Derek. And, like, there's no honeymoon for that.
No. Not at all. I just
like there's not one in Denver. The honeymoon is over in LA for the Chargers.
Well, you would say this, right? Every game that Russell Wilson will play for the Denver Broncos is a huge game that week for the NFL. Every game Russell Wilson has played the majority of his career has been a big game.
Yeah.
Right? And now just there's a newness factor. Like, it's huge. Think back to Peyton Manning gets to Denver. Every game's big. Every game the Chiefs have played for 4 straight years has been massive. I would say this year, because of the moves they've just made, the Chargers are going to feel like a pretty big deal. So every team in your division
and
is
Herbert's
playing,
just a star, so they're going to feel big.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, sorry.
So, like, they're in a division where basically every game the teams are playing is a huge deal. And we were texting back and forth on the Chandler Jones, like, Derek has not been the quarterback for a team with expectations since the year after they made the playoffs. I know they've kind of had some expectations with the Raiders, but it just, let's face it, once Gruden got here, but not really. With their fans, I think most people didn't take him that seriously until like halfway through this season. People still kind of took him seriously. For the first time, I would say, of the Gruden tenure, and the irony is he was gone, is like they kind of got like, damn, this Raider team's got some shit to them. They're tough. But now the expectations, the Chiefs' expectations are always going to be higher than the Raiders. The Broncos clearly are because they've added, Russell. But you would say the Raiders, if you're Derek and Max Crosby, go, well, we just beat the Chargers, right? We beat them to go to the playoffs. So, like, the way they're gonna carry themselves, like, are they, some people will pick them to make the playoffs. I bet a lot of people will not pick them to make the playoffs. So they're gonna have this like chip on their shoulder. But it's gonna be interesting to watch the way that they kind of handle it. Because you agree, like, universally, they are not going to get picked for the playoffs. Some people will, but some people won't. Because the Chiefs and Broncos are getting picked by the majority of people.
Yeah, God, the AFC playoff. If you had to do AFC playoffs off the top of your head right now.
Well, Bills, Chiefs, lock. I can't go Denver a
Bengals?
lock. To me, they're not a lock.
Tennessee?
They feel close to a lock, don't they?
Yeah, Indy doesn't have a quarterback yet. Now, even the guys that are out there, we know they're not getting Deshaun, so I think you'd have to
Mike
say
Vrabel
Tennessee's
is like, have you watched this the last 3 years? We have different coaches. We have different players. We have injuries. We make the playoffs every year.
So Tennessee's a lock. Buffalo's a lock. Chiefs are a lock.
You would lean Denver. Their roster's pretty good, and they add Russell Wilson.
Nathaniel Hackett, I don't know if he's going to clean himself up before he gets to the season, but he's going to be he might be coaching with his pants off every time Russell Wilson takes the field. I don't know if you saw his press conference today. He was
Yeah, he's pretty
excited. I don't know. I mean, Russ didn't make the playoffs in the NFC last year, the weak NFC.
Well, the Steelers did, but I don't think the Steelers probably back. I would say
Are we
it's between
sure
the
the
Ravens
Steelers
and the
aren't
Bengals.
better than they were last year?
Well, I mean, the time will tell.
They might be. I mean, Ben was pretty bad.
Pretty bad, yeah. You see, Mike Tomlin was at the Georgia Pro Day today, and the SEC Network was talking to him. They must have something going, like is cereal or soup, or I don't know. Is there something going around like that? Some radio take, of like is cereal or soup or food group? I don't know.
I saw Matt Olson answer a question: Are Cheetos chips?
Yeah, so it's like a question like that, and Tomlin laughed and called it a. He didn't call it a soup because it's not.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah, it's like just like
Triple A nine.
No wonder your
888-957.
No wonder your mediums are dying. But then they're asking like, "What'd you think of Jordan Davis?" And Tomlin's like, "Yeah, I'm a big Jordan Davis guy." Basically, like we fucking love him.
But they can't. They gotta have to trade up for him, right?
Well, then they're like, "Well, could he be a Steeler?" And he's like, "I'm pretty confident that he'll have hugged the commissioner well before we pick." I think Jordan Davis is a lock top 10 pick. I think there's a decent chance he goes to one of the two teams with multiple picks in the top 10. He's that. I mean, I've seen a couple highlights of like, yeah, we talk about like Malik Willis, the upside. Well, wouldn't you talk yourself into the upside of like, is this guy like, could he be Haloti Ngata meets Aaron Donald? He's a dominant force. Well, he's just 6'6", 340, runs a 4.8, played at the best defense maybe ever. I was like, what are we overthinking this one? Like, to me, there's just certain things like, are we overthinking this thing? Wait, good character guy? Everyone loves him? Face of the program? Like, we're going to like, let's hope this pass rusher really can get off the... No, it's like, let's take this guy. If Vita Vea and Haloti Ngata can go 12th overall in their drafts, this guy can go 7th. That's what I know. I feel actually very...
Kinlaw, says JB. Yeah, minus the degenerative knee.
And
way more production.
Played at South Carolina. This guy played at Georgia. Several year starter. Was not a flash player. Kinlaw can't hold this guy's jock. And that would be my other argument. I'd be like, hey, guys, Kinlaw went 14th in his draft. So if Kinlaw can go 14th, you mean the guy 6'6", 340, 4'8", can't go 6th? I honestly, if I was drafting in the top 10 and was between O-line and D-line, I would just take Jordan Davis. I'd be like, I'll promise you this. Is he going to be Aaron Donald meets Reggie White? I don't know, but he ain't going to suck. So you will not hate me for this pick. This ain't going to be Cleveland Farrell or Solomon Thomas. I will promise you that. I would honestly take him probably anytime after like 4. He'd be my pick. Unless I desperately needed a tackle. If I didn't need an offensive lineman and I needed a defensive lineman and I couldn't get... I would take Jordan Davis over Kayvon Thibodeau, and Thibodeau, I wouldn't even hesitate. The chances that Jordan Davis is better than Kayvon to me feels very, very high. Would you agree with that?
I'd say his floor is that. Yeah, just his floor is higher.
Floor is way higher. I'd take him if I was the Giants with my second pick.
What about Ravens, by the way? Sorry.
Yeah, to me, it's like one of those 3 teams. Unless Deshaun Watson on the Browns, then they'd probably be sweet. If I told you Deshaun Watson on the Browns, wouldn't you be like, yeah, they're probably in the playoffs?
Hard to know, right? Like, how many games does he play? But, yeah, if you told me he's their quarterback, then I would. But then what? The 3 AFC North teams make the playoffs?
You're saying, like, if he got suspended for 8 games?
Yeah. Somebody said earlier in the stream, I don't think I saved it, but what about Josh going to get Stephon Gilmore? They've been rumored to be interested. Former Patriot. You can make the same case.
I think it's much easier to overpay a defensive lineman like Chandler Jones, right? You're like, yeah, it's a little more than we'd like to pay him, but shit, then it is a corner. Because I do think, like, wouldn't you just rather have Rock Ya-Sin?
Yeah, maybe that is the solution.
Players.
But I mean, here we are now. And Rock Ya-Sin, somebody said in the chat earlier, was only 25.
I think he's been hurt. A little bit of a red flag. In 2020, switched his jersey number to 26 before the season, stating he wanted a new beginning. So I think it's, I think you didn't go well. He was inactive due to stomach illness. His first interception of the season. Picked off Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he played in 2021.
25 years old. Yeah.
Can anyone...
Turns 26 in May.
He played in 13 games this year, only started 8. He hasn't been a full-time starter there the last couple of years, so he's fallen out of favor.
So the Raiders were dumping salary.
For sure, because it was just a player for player. So obviously he makes a lot less than Yannick makes $11 million, right? This guy, makes a couple $1 million? So a dump salary. And you would say this, we would have cut Yannick Ngakoue, I bet they would tell you. So we can get a guy that we really liked, Ziegler liked, coming out of the draft. And I think Rock Yassin is Ballard, Patriot, like he just high character, tough guy from Temple, who's underachieved. Can we had high draft grades on him. Can we go a little Lake and Tomlinson, the Niners? Like find a guy. We were going to cut this guy. We just want an asset who's gonna cost that much. Can we resurrect this guy's career? Because if you told me the Patriots had a good grade on this guy, I would want to. This guy feels like a Patriot. Temple, tough, can tackle. I'd be blind if I said I know anything about this as a player. I've texted around, but clearly it has not gone well.
Ramon on the stream. Josh Jacobs trade ? Check his latest tweets. Josh Jacobs tweets from 5 minutes ago. I'm going to just go ahead and apologize to #Raider Nation. You'll see why soon. Emoji. I'm going back to my roots, he said 2 minutes later. Devil emoji. To Tulsa, Oklahoma? Alabama? What is he talking about?
You know, I don't want to sound like I'm 60 years old, but
Is he planning a spring break? Is that what he's talking about?
I just don't love psychoanalyzing people's cryptic tweets. Like, I have no problem like having a legit take if you want to have a legit take on Baker's statement. You're like, he's just laying it out. But guys with like cryptic tweets, and then everyone
looking for the attention, you mean?
I don't fucking know.
So on principle, you don't like doing it. I like seeing it though.
But what does that even mean?
Maybe he's a big country music fan and he's going back to listening to country music, back to his roots from the old that he grew up. Listening to
McDaniel
country.
Just signed their fullback, Alec Ingold, who tore his ACL last year. So
Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins, not Josh McDaniels, the Ravens. The
Mike
Raiders.
McDaniel, Dolphins, got their use check. I kind of like Alec Ingold, but I think they gave him $7.5 million. A little rich.
A lot of money.
Also torn ACL. Now, again, it could be like $2 million guaranteed. I think Josh... I followed Josh on Twitter. Before you said these weird tweets, I had seen him like, who's going to play fullback for us, or something like that.
What number did Alec Ingold wear?
45?
That would not be. He would not change his number to 45 from 28, right?
No. He was 28. I'm pretty sure Josh Jacobs. What was he at Alabama?
Well, I've got him in an 8. Maybe that's what it's about. But he feels bad because you're going to have to buy a new jersey.
Are you allowed to wear 8 as a running back now? It doesn't feel like you are.
You can, if DBs can wear, if linebackers can wear 2, why can't a running back wear 8?
Can you think of any running backs that are wearing single digits? Because I can't.
I thought they got rid of all the rules.
I thought it was only for certain positions.
Oh.
Josh Jacobs.
Running backs, receivers, tight ends can wear any number from 1 to 49.
He does look pretty good.
McKinnon wore 1, didn't he?
Yeah, I guess Mariota wore 8, but he's gone. So, yeah.
Nothing like getting people riled up to change your jersey number.
That's why I don't psychoanalyze.
I know.
Guys, I've been wearing Nike cleats for 20 years. Adidas. It's like, okay. Because if you are Josh McDaniel, like getting rid of Josh Jacobs, wouldn't you just want to keep him?
Yeah, Mariota gone. People are saying in the chat he's going back to 8 because Mariota's leaving. Chase Edmonds wore 2. Dante Freeman wore 7. Lenny Fournette hit 7.
Oh yeah, you're right. That was heat of the moment.
No, it's fine. That's why I like doing live shows. Honestly, is because we say things wrong and people are there to be like Stat Boy. check his follow-up tweet. All right. This is the last time I do this, though.
See?
Now that it's lame.
Once you here's my problem with this. Once you start, there is no stopping it
Oh,
because
let's
they can
check
just keep
follow-up
tweeting. Guys, I'm just fronting. Give my guys the flowers.
Somebody said, please say you're not going nowhere. He said, nah, not that I know of. All right. Well, does he have to buy back all the other numbers? JB on the stream. I don't psychoanalyze, says the dudes who were playing rap sheet talking about Jimmy to the Colts clip half speed yesterday. Come on, guys. Ha 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 ha.
What? We can psychoanalyze people talking. It's harder with tweets. Pete Carroll said we love Drew Lock coming out of the draft.
I mean, at this point, just play out all the different options that they have, right?
Ted Nguyen had a good tweet. He's like, I don't know if I'd be admitting that. In fairness, I mean, I think a lot of people liked, athletic, big arm. Wasn't going to cost, wasn't a first, you wouldn't have to use a first round pick on him, but he just, something's missing.
Yeah. That was a, I think the news of the day also gives us a quick opportunity, although this could be something we do on Thursday. What year was this? 22? So 17 was 17 Baker's draft?
Feels like 18 was.
18.
The Josh Allen, Lamar
Yeah, the
Jackson.
17 was his last season. Yeah. So, I mean, in hindsight, pretty crazy. He went number one.
Baker number one?
Well, not just that, but he went 1. Saquon went 2. Sam Darnold went 3. Denzel Ward went 4. Bradley Chubb went 5. Quentin Nelson went 6. Then it's Josh Allen. Then it's Roquan. Then it's McGlinchey. Josh Rosen. I mean, that draft is just Fitzpatrick.
You said if the Browns had a do-over, what do you think they do? Josh Allen 1. Who do they go with at 4? Quentin Nelson? Just like take a sweet Hall of Fame.
Lamar Jackson.
To have just two, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And then flip Lamar.
I mean, analytics.
Remember that was the thing? Take 2 quarterbacks and let them battle it out. That was like a topic. Do you remember that? Should they take 2 quarterbacks and just let the cream rise and then get rid of the other guy?
Yeah, but it was going to be Baker and Darnold. What if they had tried it and failed, double failed? We'd be like, it's because they put their quarterbacks in bad situations. What if they had done that?
Can you imagine if you're Jimmy Haslam and you just look every once in a while, you're like, wait, we could have just had Josh Allen and Vita Vea? We could have just had Josh Allen and Quentin Nelson? That'd be hard.
To answer your question,
you could not look back at drafts.
Do you go Colton Miller?
No. I mean, I'd want the highest level player. So I'd want Quentin Nelson or Roquan Smith or Vita Vea. I'd want a guy that has a chance to go to like the Hall of Fame. Because they already had
Darius Leonard was in that draft.
Yeah, that's pretty good too.
He went 36.
Well, couldn't the Browns just have had him too in the second round? Who'd they take in the second round? Nick Chubb?
Well, they took 36. Yeah, they took Nick Chubb 1 spot ahead of Darius Leonard.
To me, you would have been good. What if I just told you got Nick Chubb, Quentin Nelson, Josh Allen? Like, is anyone complaining?
What if you gone Josh Allen, Quentin Nelson, Darius Leonard?
But
Nick Chubb's good.
But what if you had Vita next to Miles? You'd be like, good luck.
Yeah, you're right. What if you had Roquan?
What if you went Josh Allen, Bradley Chubb next to Miles, and then took Darius Leonard? Because you can always find running backs. But I feel like whenever I watch Browns on Red Zone, Nick Chubb is fucking sweet.
I know. How about Nick Chubb? They could have taken Fred Warner. Fred Warner was pick 70. Wouldn't have taken him that high, but if you did a redraft, Fred would be a top 15 pick in that draft, I think. 20.
So maybe go Josh Allen, Vita Vea, Nick Chubb, and then just take Fred Warner in the third.
You take Mark Andrews went pick 86.
That's a pretty good one too.
I mean, you could build one hell of a team just off of this draft.
So the Ravens got Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson.
They did.
That's a pretty good draft. That alone makes you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. I mean, the Ravens got and Orlando Brown Jr., the tackle.
That's
Who they trade him to Kansas City?
Yeah. What round he going?
He went
4th.
Third. He was pick 83.
That's a good 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Who else did well? I mean, that's really good. Atlanta took Christian Kirk. Calvin Ridley. Niners got McGlinchey and Fred Warner in that draft, John. I mean, Niners didn't have a terrible draft.
Can you imagine taking Josh Rosen the 10th pick? Looking back, like, how do we do this? And it turns out, like, the reason he failed was not everyone's like, the guy, he's weird. It's like he just was terrible as a player. No one's like, he's like acting like Baker Mayfield. No, he's just awful. Like, he's just an awful player. Like, physically, he just doesn't. You just watch him at the training camp practice. I remember thinking, like, that's Josh Rosen?
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy. Because in fairness, I loved him. Now, the game immediately changed. So it's like, couldn't have predicted. Become a running quarterback game. He looks slow and can't move.
Sam says, Jameis or Mariota better fit in Indy? I think Jameis a better player.
Coming off an ACL.
Yeah, I think he's a better player. What do you think?
I mean, I would take Mariota probably.
All right.
ACL thing.
If there's news tonight, Ham will be back. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Live pod coming on Thursday. It don't stop. Anything else we got to say? Did we miss anything? Did I miss
Just
anything?
keep it rolling. BuckMason.com. Go get yourself some swag.
/ham. See everybody on Friday.
I got
We'll
my
be back
swag.
streaming on Thursday.
I got my swag.